Hi guys, Scott Woodward with you, and welcome to the 2011 Grand Final preview. And if you've been following us all year, you'll be very happy that Manly have made the Grand Final. We're on them at the odds of $16, and we also have a live futures double going in the AFL with Geelong at the great odds of 65 to 1. And obviously we will put ourselves in a win-win position to ensure that we will have our 8th successive profitable year in a row. Fantastic year, and let's talk about why we're on Manly and why they've made the Grand Final. Certainly their opposition is the New Zealand team Geelong, and look, I'm not saying they don't deserve to be there, but any team that loses week 1 by 30 points, probably there's an argument to say that they shouldn't be in the Grand Final. But their last 2 weeks have been fantastic. Sensational win, season high against the Storm last week, and maybe that was their peak. Prior to that, a gutsy second half when they knocked out West Tigers, when West Tigers' tactics were really dumb and they allowed them back into the game. But look, they're there. They've certainly got the guns to win a Grand Final. There's no doubt about that. They have the strength, the power, outstanding forwards, and some brilliant young halves. And we're going to talk about them in a second and compare them with the Manly guys. But just looking at the records of the two teams, the last 20 times these two teams have met, Manly have won 17 and the Warriors have only won 7. Importantly, the last 10, it's 8 Manly, 2 Warriors. That's quite telling. These two teams have never played at the ANZ Stadium. I don't see that as an issue for either team. Only the fact that we're going to talk about travelling in a fair bit. Manly, of course, haven't done any travelling at all, and the Warriors have been all over the place, spending a lot of time at international airports. I want to talk about the configuration of the teams. I'm not quite sure what Manly coach Des Hasler is going to do. He has to chop his bench. I certainly would be chopping George Rose, the high-profile, big, lovable George Rose. I've been disappointed with his work rate and how slow he has been getting back into defence, and I think he's a liability for the team. But he certainly does offer them some size and some go forward. There's no doubt about that. And up against the big Warriors team, I'll be surprised if Hasler doesn't go with George Rose. But on form, I don't think he should be there, and I'd be inclined to select one of the young kids, Vic Mauro or Tim Robertson, in his place. But I think the bench will be Shane Rodney, Jamie Buhrer, George Rose, and I think Darcy, Lussick will maintain his position. The big question is, will Des Hasler start with him? He's a big giant of a guy, 6'4", 108 kilos, and he loves to hit hard. And I wouldn't be surprised if he uses him for the first 15 minutes or so before he puts on Joe Galuvao, who's just been absolutely outstanding. One of the unsung heroes in the forward pack for me, Joe. He's one of those guys that goes straight and hits very hard, unlike his other prop partner, Brent, Kite, who tends to run sideways, and he needs to straighten up and have a look at what Joe's doing. They need him to run straight. They need to go forward from them. I'll just quickly run through the two teams. Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. Brett Stewart, I consider in the top 3 fullbacks in the world. I've never seen anybody who can anticipate a break as good as what he does, and I think we can put down 1 try for him already. He's a big-time player. His calming influence at the back there to help the 2 young halves will be very significant, and I couldn't wish to have a better fullback playing in that position. He's certainly up there with Billy Slater when I come to rate fullbacks. Michael Robertson, he's certainly no superstar, but he's an outstanding club player. He won't do anything wrong. He's very safe under the bomb, and he's a great positional player. He's there when you want him to be, and Des Hasler never, ever hesitates in selecting him. He's always straight in there when there's been injuries. Straight back, Michael Robertson. Jamie Lyon, I said last week, I think is the form centre in the competition, and he's been basically that all year. He's just had an outstanding season, very strong in defence, but brilliant in attack, and I think he'll be a handful, and he's a wonderful captain. Steve Matai, I had a concern with Steve Matai and also Watmough about losing the game. They're both outstanding, brilliant players, but they can also lose the game for their team. Watmough gave the ball up twice when in attacking positions last week. They were attacking the line twice, and Watmough handed the ball over. Silly played the ball and just had the ball taken from him, and he He undoes all the good work that he does, and he has a wonderful work rate, keeps taking the ball up when everybody's tired. He puts his hand up and takes the ball up. He absolutely has to be there, but he needs to look at his error rate. It can cost his team big time. Steve Matai also, he's lucky to be there this week. He probably shouldn't be playing, and they can't afford him to be sent off or, in fact, give a silly penalty away. He doesn't need that rubbish. He's a wonderful player. If he just plays football, he'll do very well for his team. Will Hopoate, world beater. You can play him in any position. I thought he might have been playing centre this week with Matai out, but he's back on the wing. He scored 2 tries last week. He's brilliant in open field play, very strong, and his match up with Mateo Vatuvei will be one of the highlights of the day. There's no doubt about that. Kieran Foran and Daly Evans are a superior 6 and 7 to the New Zealand 6 and 7 to James Maloney and Shaun Johnson. I consider the New Zealanders James Maloney and Shaun Johnson both 5'8". I don't think the Warriors have got a dinky-die halfback like Daly Evans. He can kick, organise, talk, and he's a Fenicum number 7, and I think they are the most important players on the field. That is big edge that Manly have got in this game. Kieran Foran has been fantastic in the last 2 weeks. Since he had that week's break, he's come back better than ever. And his combination with Cherry Evans is one of the big things that Manly have got going for them. We've talked about Galuvao. He's been fantastic. Matt Ballin is Matt Ballin. You get the same from him every week. I really don't think he's a dinky-die 100% 80-minute player. And because of that, he tends to miss more tackles than what he probably should have. His defence wasn't that good last week, and that is a little bit of a concern for Manly. But because he plays the 80 minutes, it allows Des to have another forward on the bench. So it's a little bit of give and take there. I think he'll aim up again this week. Brent, Kite, he's been okay, but I really want him to go forward and stop going crabby. He needs to go straight up. He's big, strong, athletic, and he needs to make his presence felt against those big Kiwi forwards. Anthony Watmough, world class, should be in the Australian team. Just needs to think about his game and stop handing the ball over and making errors. Tony Williams is the real find in the finals competition. He's turned out to be an 80-minute second rower, and every time he gets the ball, he looks like he's going to make a break. He's the real danger man for Manly against New Zealand Warriors, no doubt about that. He's been one of the big edges for them and been just a fantastic find particularly in the last 2 weeks. We've always known of his talent, but not in the second row playing for 80 minutes. And that's happened because Glenn Stewart was outed. Now, Glenn Stewart is back. Des Hazard will probably start with him. I certainly wouldn't be starting with him. I'd keep him on the bench and bring him on when the Kiwis bring on Feleti and Mateo. I'd bring him on at the same time. They'll be marking each other, and that's when I'll be bringing Glenn Stewart on. He can't be 100%. He's not the world's best trainer. Anyway, I think he'll start, and maybe he'll get a break at some stage. I don't know. Normally he is an 80-minute player. Shane Rodney I would be starting with, but I think he'll have him off the bench. Jamie Buhrer probably won't get many minutes, but when he does come on, he's very, very dangerous. He can bust tackles, and he's as fast as any back. I don't think Vic Morrow will play. George Rose will come on and make big hit-ups like he does, but he has got a mistake in him. Darcy, Lussick, I'm going to be very interested to see how Des uses him. As a pinch hitter or maybe as the starter, I don't know. Very interesting. Tim Robertson, very promising Tim Robertson. Unfortunately, I think will drop off on the bench. As for the Kiwi side here, Kevin Locke should be playing fullback for New Zealand this year. I had him in my team from day one, and from the coach's point of view, he only had him in the side because there was an injury to Lance Ohio. Otherwise, he may not be playing fullback today. Bill Tupou, I think, has got a lot of mistakes in him. We haven't seen them so far. Krisnan has got a lot of mistakes. We haven't seen them so far. The same. Manu Vatuvei two games ago had a shocker. But he had a great game last week, and he's world class when he's at his best, but he also can have a bad one. I'm sure he'll be copping some bombs. James Maloney and Shaun Johnson aren't good defenders. They're not good organisers and aren't good defenders. And while James Maloney talks more than what Shaun Johnson does, they're both absolute fly machines, and they can bust any sort of defence wide open, but not good in defence. Sam Rapira, certainly a world-class forward. I think he'll come off the bench. Aaron Heremaia has been missing a lot of tackles in the last few weeks, and he's been put to the bench, and maybe they'll start again with Lance O'Hire. Jacob Lillyman was sensational last week, probably his season best game, and I don't know if he'll start or come from the bench. Feleti, Mateo, although selected, will probably come from the bench again after 15 or 20 minutes, I would think. Simon Mannering is just the most solid, reliable player in the team. Wonderful captain, and he just always makes his presence felt. Fantastic in defence. Michael Locke is there because he's a wonderful tacker. Hasn't got that much talent, although he slipped a magnificent pass away last week. I've never seen him do that before, but he's there as a defender. He's a tackleaholic, and he'll be very, very difficult for the Manly guys to get around him when they're anywhere near him. Lance O'Hire is on the interchange. I expect him to start again this week. Russell Packer will probably also start this week. Ben Machelino will probably come off the bench as he normally does and makes his presence whenever he starts. He's an outstanding player and probably the best bench forward that the Kiwis have got. Taylor is an out-and-out defender. He started last week. Remains to be seen whether or not he'll start again this week. It's hard to say. But it's a fantastic forward pack. They're very, very strong in the bench, and they had that advantage over the Storm last week. They haven't got that advantage over the Manly Seagulls this week. They're very strong on the bench as well, and they have also got an outstanding forward pack. We're talking about the Manly forward pack. Their back three, Watmough, Williams and Stewart. You just don't get any better than that. That is a world-class back row. I want to talk a little bit about the Warriors' frequent flyer points. Since the qualifying final, they had to fly from Auckland to Brisbane. Semi-final, they flew from Auckland to Sydney. Prelim final, they flew from Auckland to Melbourne and then back again last Sunday. And then they've had to come back again on the Wednesday for the grand final breakfast. If you spend any time at airports, particularly international airports, you are spending many, many hours just sitting around twiddling your thumbs doing nothing. And I can tell you, it's draining. And when you do it week after week, it's not good. And it's not a good preparation when you have injuries and you're trying to prepare for a game and you're trying to recover. And that's what the New Zealand Warriors have had to do in the last month. It's been a monumental effort for them to keep winning these games away. And in fact, they lost the first one, but they've managed to win their next two, and they've got them in the grand final. Now, while all this is happening, the Seagulls have just had to take 20-minute bus trips from the beautiful peninsula in Manly, where they've been sunning themselves. So in terms of recovery, it's been so much easier, and they have had just an absolutely perfect preparation for this game. I talked a little bit about the defence of the halves for the Warriors, Maloney and Johnson. And I think that's an area where the Seagulls will certainly be targeting. Last week, although Maloney and Johnson had a great game against the Storm, Maloney missed 7 tackles. Shaun Johnson, who the big raps are, comparing him with Benji Marshall, he missed 9 tackles in that game last week. 9 tackles he missed. He misses 9 tackles against Manly. He'll be punished a lot more. So you got the two halves missing 7 and 9 tackles respectively, and you can throw in the hooker Heremaia, who missed 5, and he's missed 7 against the Tigers and 7 against the Broncos. I'll add that to Maloney. When Maloney played against the Broncos, that was when the Warriors got beaten by 30 points. Maloney missed 13 tackles on that occasion, so he's missed 13 tackles, 4 tackles against the Tigers and 7 tackles against the Storm. That's not real what you want to be seeing from your 5'8". And Johnson missed 6, 1 and 9. A little bit of a worry there. And when you've got some other guys in the back line who are noted for making a lot of mistakes and haven't really been shown out yet, and I'm talking about Tupou, I'm talking about Krisnan. Krisnan is an absolute mistake freak, but since he's been moved to centre, he's been fantastic. Look, I guess what I'm saying is I think the Warriors are a very, very competitive side. We know they can beat anybody on their best day, but they probably don't deserve to be in the grand final. From what we've seen, I know they've been a nightmare for me during the 26 rounds. Every time I've selected them, when I thought they'd win, they've let me down big time, and then they'd win when you wouldn't expect them to win, and they'd knock you out. It's been a very up and down season for them from an analyst's point of view. Very, very hard to follow. I think they peaked last week. I think they had their season high. If you had watched how they celebrated after the game, they looked like they'd won their grand final last week. I don't think they'll come up as good this week. It's been a very, very tough season for them. A lot of travelling, and they're coming up against an outstanding Manly team, very well prepared by Des Hasler, has got depth in every position, and I just think they'll be too classy, too strong, and too clinical. For me, it's a Manly Seagulls grand final. I hope you back them, and I hope it's been a good season for you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Cheers.